Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 368. How did you get on Ben Greenfield's podcast? Did he reach out to you or did you reach out to him?
No, that's a funny story. So I was sitting in the living room and my mom came in and she showed me this post that Ben Greenfield had made on Facebook. She showed me this picture of Ben Greenfield hanging upside down on an inversion table. She had known that I was a fan of Ben since, I don't know, probably since I was like 17 when I first got into triathlon, because he had his book Beyond Training and he was really into triathlon at the time. And so I'd watch all his videos online. And anyway, so she showed me this picture of him hanging upside down talking about the benefits of traction, whether it be, blood flow to the head or different types of decompression for the spine or making you feel good just in general, anything like that. And this one I was really, really, really excited about the ELDOA, and I still am, but I was just, new into it. So I was really passionate about it. And so I decided to just message him on Facebook. And that's really what I did is I messaged him and I was like, hey, Ben, my name's Jacob Schoen. I have these exercises that I've learned, they're pretty uncommon and you're a pretty uncommon person. I think you might really dig them. They're pretty holistic. They're pretty badass. Like, I think you might really like these things. So I'd be totally willing to show them to you if you're willing to, to have me teach them to you. And so he responded, and the next day I booked my plane ticket to go up to Washington like 2 or 3 weeks later. That's where he lives in Washington State. And I showed up at his house 3 weeks later and taught him exercise for 8 hours over the course of 3 days. And just really got immersed in how he lives up there and what he does. Him and his whole family, they're just, if he's listening to this, man, you're a beast. Like, good job for you and your kids and your wife. Like, y'all are an amazing, amazing group. So I was able to go up there and spend time and just kind of live in the Greenfield household, and then really dedicate myself to training him every day as intensely and precisely as I could in all the exercises that I had learned up to that point, just to try to give the best impression that I could. So
that is so awesome. And during the time that you were training him over the 3 days, was he recording you and that's how you got on the show, or after those 3 days then you sat down and did a podcast interview?
Right, the second one. So after those 3 days, he was like, hey man, I really enjoyed what you did, and I think the best way that I can give you exposure and the best way we can let people know about this is through the podcast. And so he was like, let's set up a time to get on Skype and make it happen. And so that's exactly what we did. Is I think maybe 6 weeks later we were on Skype and we got into it. So it was interesting because it was just like, this person that I had seen his books, and he's not famous like Brad Pitt's famous, but in the world of training and more alternative types of ways of thinking in the health sphere, I mean, he's kind of the man. So to be on his show and to be able to talk to him and really to be able to train him like that was pretty awesome for me. So that was definitely an experience I will not forget anytime soon. It's still kind of unreal because people ask me like just like you did, like, how'd you get on the show? And it's just like, well, I just messaged him. And so it's kind of like a lesson in some way to just, if you just put yourself out there and just kind of say, hey, what's the worst that can happen? He says no. Or the best thing that can happen is that, you get on this podcast and then a whole bunch of other doors of opportunity open for you. So it was a good lesson to learn from that for sure.
That is so cool. We have with us Jacob Schoen. I was really excited to interview him, especially because he was on the Ben Greenfield podcast. And of course, most people know it's a really cool health podcast. People have told me I'm like the female version of him. I thought that was pretty neat. He was homeschooled. I'm homeschooling. I'm gonna homeschool our 4-year-old. In fact, we're gonna do road schooling. We plan on getting an RV and traveling across Canada and the States and homeschooling there. And I'm trying to figure out the logistics of how to keep doing the podcast while doing road schooling. It's gonna be fun. And hey, my idea is I want to travel and go to my guests and even like interview them or video them in person. So we'll have to come down to New Orleans and see you, Jacob.
Come down to New Orleans.
Absolutely.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited for you to teach my listeners today some awesome information about how to relieve pain and eliminate pain and both chronic and acute injuries and how to prevent them. You specialize in that. You have a degree in kinesiology, but you've got all this amazing training. and I've sort of heard of it before, but I don't really know a lot about it. And so I know my listeners will definitely want to know more about what you do, SomaTraining,
Yeah.
and all the other things you do. So before we get into
Yeah.
your your credentials, I'd love to hear your
Yeah.
story. Like, what happened in your life that made you want to dive into kinesiology and eventually want to help people um, become better versions of themselves?
Yeah, sure. That I think that starts from day one, honestly, in my life. But now is a perfect time to give a big thanks to the main person involved with that, which is my mom. So she's been my best friend for my whole life, and she's really the person that inspires me to do what I do. And so without her, even coming down to just giving me my first client, without her, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. So thank you, Mama. I love you. But
I've never had a
gotta give
guest do a shout out to their mom. I think that's pretty
Gotta give a shout
awesome.
out to mom. You gotta give a shout out to mom. She's so important. But yeah, I mean, I started like any kid. I grew up playing sports, played every sport you could imagine: baseball, football, soccer, basketball, all of those. I just loved being outside. I loved playing sports, and also I was like unbelievably competitive. Competitive to the point where not just I would cry if I lost, but like I would cry for days and think about it. So anyway, so I was super super competitive, and then that brought me into sports into high school, where I was like, I wasn't the most naturally gifted athlete, but I was really set on trying to work hard to try to find different ways to be better, whether it was how to make my legs stronger so I could kick the soccer ball harder or jump higher, or whether it was how much weight can I do for this to make me swim faster, whatever it is. So being really competitive, and then being really curious and being really interested in trying to learn the fine details about things to try to make up for any deficit I might have, naturally was really my impetus into how to learn different things. And so whenever I was in high school, I had an injury to my knee, and later come to find out that that injury to my knee actually probably gave me the injury that I have in my hip right now, that I'm still dealing with to this day. So that injury in my hip is what really inspired me to start trying to figure out different ways to get the injury and the pain to go away, because it would just bother me all the time. So I was a really competitive cyclist and triathlete in my late teen, early 20 years. And anybody who knows athletes in those sports, they know that they're really, when they get focused on something, they just kind of go for it. Like if you're a cyclist or a runner or a swimmer, you can look at the black line all day and just focus on that thing. So I was really driven to try to figure out what the heck was going on with my freaking hip. I couldn't figure it out. So um, when I got into college, I knew that I wanted to deal with something of the physical body. I was so interested in performance. I was so interested in like how to make the human body bigger, faster, stronger, just kind of classic, like most athletes are. And then so I went into kinesiology. And then from kinesiology, my senior year of college, I got an internship at a holistic training facility in Baton Rouge, which is where LSU is. And so during that semester, I was introduced to all different types of exercise techniques that I had never even heard of or thought of, or even, yeah, never even knew existed. Because my initial interest was in the sports performance aspect, how to make a muscle bigger, faster, stronger. I had never really thought about the body in a holistic type of way. I had always just really focused in super concentrated on a particular level. I had never really branched out and try to think about, okay, what influence does the ankle have on the hip? What influence does the knee have on the shoulder? What influence does all the different parts of the body have on the bigger picture? And so once I got into this internship and started to have my eyes literally not just open, but peeled back and just held open to all this new, amazing information, I was just so inspired to start to learn about this stuff. And I was like, man, maybe some of these things can really help me with the hip problem that I have. And so my final couple months there, I got introduced to the ELDOA techniques, which are a group of exercises designed to create space at a joint. So whether it be your hip or your back or your neck, whatever it is, they try to create space to give more room for the nerve, more room so that you can rotate and move and really just feel good. And so these exercises, I got introduced to them, and I was like, man, not only do like they feel really good, but they're also really challenging, and there's an academic aspect to learning about them. I was just hooked from that. And so as soon as the semester was over and I graduated, I signed up with a couple of the guys from the facility to go take the first ELDOA 1, which was in Dallas that next April. And ever since then, I have been on the road to just really learning as much as possible. But, over time, it's kind of changed from just learning as much as possible just to be the best practitioner to learning as much as possible because I realize the more things that I learn, the more opportunity I have for the people that come into my studio for me to help them. Because if I learn a technique or if I learn something more about the body that opens my eyes a little bit more to a problem that someone else is having, then that makes me a better practitioner and gives me the opportunity to help them. So it's really been, you know, all the way back from day one to trying to be a good athlete to now to trying to use that same drive to get the people that come into my office out of pain or just to having a more functional life.
It's interesting. If you had never had that hip injury, do you think you would have ended up in the same place?
It's so funny that you say that because I've been it's a constant battle in life, I think, to try to garner perspective and to try to really appreciate the things that are challenging for you and how they put you in the place um, that you are. For example, like my dad died when I was young, and
Mm-hmm.
if it wasn't for him passing when I was young, then I probably wouldn't have the relationship I have with my mom.
Right.
And so if I didn't have the relationship I have with my mom, then I wouldn't have the respect for the work that she does. She's also a trainer. So I probably wouldn't have been inspired as much by her to do what I do now. So just from that level, and then also like the competitive nature of being a little boy trying to find his way, so like everything that comes from that. And then like it's funny because I got the knee injury when I joined the wrestling team in high school, and I joined the wrestling team in high school because my friends that were on the wrestling team kept beating me up, and I was like, all right, well, I can't keep getting beat up, like that's this isn't that much fun, like I want to be able to handle this back. And so I did it totally from a place of like, now I see it as a place of a place of lack of maturity. But in reality, like if I hadn't done that, then no, for sure, I wouldn't have had the knee injury. The knee injury wouldn't have caused the hip problem. The hip problem, sent me on my path towards really trying to learn about all this stuff. And it's a tough thing to kind of do to have that perspective that the thing that causes you the most pain is probably the best gift. But
Mm-hmm.
in reality, that's really what it is. And so, as much as my hip problem annoys me, I have to at the same time be thankful that I have it, because without it, I for sure would not have the drive or the impetus to really try to figure any of this stuff out. And so, yeah, I guess I can thank my bum hip for that.
Well, and you turned your pain into a gift.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, and hopefully it's the gift that keeps on giving, I guess.
Right.
you know yeah, it's because it's people who have problems that they've been dealing with for a long time, like it's a lot of times there's a lot of layers to it. It's complex, not just from an orthopedic level, where now my hip problem has caused different things to happen in my lumbar spine, and that creates little problems with my neck, or I have this, and I still have the knee problem, so like, yes, all that stuff's connected, but you know everything comes in layers like that. So it's definitely an interesting process for sure, both
Mm-hmm.
mentally, physically, and emotionally too.
Now you're an ELDOA trainer. Can you explain, or what does ELDOA mean?
Yeah, ELDOA. So I like to try to make it as simple as possible because I don't know if it's Einstein that said it takes a real master to, or anyone can make something simple complex, but it takes a real master to make something complex simple. I think something along those lines. But um, yeah, really, what ELDOA is, it's a group of exercises designed to create space at a joint. So if you think about our body and the way that it's organized, and we can get into that a little bit more later too, but it's really organized in what's called tensegrity. So tensegrity is kind of like those kids' toys that you see where there's a bunch of rubber bands holding a bunch of like sticks together. So those sticks are our bones, those rubber bands are our connective tissue and our muscles. So if you think about your body, if over time you get dehydrated or too much stress or injury, those rubber bands start to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and more fragile, right? So the goal for the ELDOA is to reestablish the quality of those rubber bands, and then also to establish, again, better movement between the sticks. So it creates space at a joint. On a deeper level, it gets as complex as you want to make it. So it means, in French, it's a French acronym, but in English, it's longitudinal osteoarticular decoaptation stretches, which is not only a mouthful, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, but I want to hear the French version.
Oh, the French version? All right, here we go. Gosh, you know I don't speak French, right? It's like entraînement longitude décoaptation osteoarticulaire avec something. All right,
That was awesome.
you made me do it, and I did it. All right, there you go. Hope you're happy.
That
But
was great.
yeah, so but yeah, so it's a big word that if you really just boil it down, you have two structures, two bones, and you wanna create a little bit more space between them. What that space means is that space means freedom. That freedom gives you the ability to move. It means less stress on the artery and the vein that are associated with that space. It means better quality, better hydration, more ability to get nutrition to that area. Just in general, it means a higher quality existence for that particular structure that you're working on.
That's really interesting because the first thing I think of when giving a joint more space is instability. The more space you give a
Sure.
joint, the more unstable it becomes. Can you bust that myth or explain why
Yeah.
giving the joint more space using ELDOA would not create an instability in the joint?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were to, for example, lay down on someone's table and they just yanked your leg, right? And they, let's say the goal was to create space between your leg bone and your hip bone, so your femur and your ilium. Let's say that was the goal, and let's say they accomplished that goal where they now have 2 centimeters instead of one. There is going to be more instability at that joint now because why? For one, because it was done passively. Okay, so the ligaments that support the joint, the muscles that support the joint, they didn't learn anything. So they didn't have time to adapt. They didn't have time to actively take part in it. And also the nervous system, which is what coordinates your proprioception and your awareness of your body, no longer now has any feedback from that joint that it knows exists. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, so when things are done actively, whether it be, a kid learning how to write or ride a bicycle or someone learning how to do an exercise to decompress a joint in their back, when it's done actively, the nervous system takes part, the brain takes part, and then locally the muscles and the ligaments and all of the connective tissue around the joint, they all take part in that process. And so you become strong in that new place as opposed to just being put there by something or someone else. You now, because you got there yourself, you learned how to be there, and the structures that got you there or are there to support you know what you're doing. They know what your intent was, and their ability to adapt to that new place is so much stronger. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. So if someone hangs
Yeah.
upside down using an inversion table, is that considered passive?
It is. It is. So because the active component of that is just gravity. The active component of that is not intrinsic to their connective tissue or to their body. It's an outside force acting on them and then them allowing that to happen. So that is passive. Yes, they're holding on to the pull-up bar, but at a more specific level or more precise way of looking at it, it is passive. If you do an ELDOA exercise, trust me, it is active. I mean, I've had athletes where, for example, I worked with a weightlifter who was, I believe he was 22 at the time. He was like 160 pounds. He could clean and jerk 375. I mean, this kid was an absolute stud weightlifter. I had him do T8, T9 ELDOA, which is, to be fair, one of the more difficult ones. And he said he was more likely to throw in the white flag, to throw in the towel during the ELDOA exercise than he is in even some of his hardest squat workouts, because what it does is it not only in some way puts you in a slight battle against gravity, but also in a battle against all of the tightness that you have intrinsically in yourself. So if you're really, really tight in your hips, or if you're really, really tight in your shoulders or in your neck, and then I try to coach you into a good position, then you have to work against that tightness. And that the battle against yourself is the hardest battle. So it's super active when you do it, but because it's active, your body remembers it, it ingrains it into your nervous system, and the result lasts longer because you had to learn how to do it as opposed to someone just in some way giving you the answer.
I'm trying to imagine it, obviously, with a podcast, we can't see you doing it.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm trying to imagine it. Is it like stretching, or is it like doing a squat? I mean, I'm trying to imagine going against the tension of the
Yeah.
body to open up the joints.
Yeah, sure. So if you think, I'll bring it to one of the most introductory postures. It's one of the ones that you learn when you first start doing the ELDOA. It's the ELDOA for T6, T7. So I'll try to describe it to you in a way that hopefully makes sense in the context of what we're talking about. But you sit as tall as you can possibly sit. So most people, because most people work at a desk nowadays, or if they don't, they spend a lot of time on their phone or on the computer, and they start to develop that rounded posture that everyone's familiar with. My head's forward, I'm looking at my cell phone kind of posture. And so that posture, okay, so now you have to try to sit tall. So now you can't sit rounded, which is more comfortable for you. So you try to sit tall now. So now you're pushing the crown of your head to the ceiling, and you're pushing your sit bones into the floor. So your ischial tuberosities down into the floor. And what that is that's called axial extension. And so essentially what you're doing is you're taking the resting tension in the spine and increasing it to start to establish at the deepest level a little bit of tension so that you can create some space at a particular joint. And then with your legs crossed, you start to push your knees down a little bit. So that, and the way I think about that is that kind of anchors the lowest level. And then you take your hands above you, keep them together like you're praying, and you try to touch the ceiling. And so you don't just hold your hands at a high point. You're actively, constantly trying to touch the ceiling with your head and with your hands as you keep your sit bones and your knees pushing down. And if you really just take a step back and look at that, it's the upper half is doing a tug of war to the ceiling, the lower half is doing a tug of war to the floor, and somewhere in the middle they meet, and they meet at T6, T7, and at that joint they create a little battle. They create a little tug of war where the part that's above wants to go up, the part that's below wants to go down, and so in the middle you create a little bit of space.
You said cross your legs?
Yeah, you cross your legs. So for T6, T7, you cross your
Does
legs.
it
Yep.
matter what
So like you're
leg is
like
crossed? Like left over right or right over left, or doesn't matter?
no, it doesn't, because you close the kinetic chain at the ischial tuberosities. So whenever you start to cross the leg, you don't have any concern anymore for the balance of the pelvic floor, and now you're really just concerned about the extension above your head. So that's just particular for that posture. For the other ones, though, you have more concern for the different fascial connections down to the feet, into the hips, whether depending on which level you're trying to target.
That felt awesome. How long should I
Yeah, I
hold it
mean,
for?
60 seconds,
Oh,
60
geez.
seconds. So yeah, yeah. Well, I try to explain it in a little bit like it's a really, really fast jog. So it's not a sprint because you can only sprint for so long, you know? So if you're just, I'm pushing super hard, I'm holding my breath, I'm trying to make myself as tall as possible. And then a lot of people, when they first try it, they go, whew, that was tough. Oh man, it's only been 15 seconds. The reality is to get to get the different type of muscle fibers that you're working with to totally relax, to shut off the Sherrington's reflex, to get the fascia that you're working with to actually start to respond because of its elastic nature, to actually start to respond, you need to hold it under tension for a little bit longer. So the base level we say is just 60 seconds. Now there are adaptations to that depending on which ELDOA you're doing, and also the state of the client that you're working with. If they have, a super toned nervous system, they're under a lot of stress or they're under a lot of pain, maybe you change that a little bit, but the base level is that you work for 60 seconds. And that also gives you time to start to make modifications too. Like if let's say you don't have super good awareness of your head in space, if you only go up there for 10 seconds, well, then you don't really have time to correct the posture of your head or to really learn that it was in a bad way so that you can move it back. So that 60 seconds is both physiologically functional but also awareness functional. It lets you try to modify and perfect the exercise while you work at it.
I like it. And in your pre-interview form, you had mentioned that you love to teach people how to have awareness of their body, so when they go to work out, they can prevent injuries. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times I've injured, and my husband too, I'm going to throw him under the bus. How many times that both of
Yeah.
us have injured ourselves. I remember this one time we went back in the gym. It was sort of like after taking a hiatus, we're like, okay, we're back. This is going to be awesome. And like the
Yeah.
first machine, we're like, okay, we're going to use machines. We're going to be, because they're safe. We're like not going to injure
Sure.
ourselves. I think we were recovering from something. We had, yeah, I just remember that. Yeah, my husband had, had fractured his ankle.
Mm.
And then we were working with a trainer, and the trainer was like, just push harder. It's fine. And it was, and so we
Yeah.
were like, no, we got an x-ray. No, it's actually fractured. Thanks for telling him to push through it.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So when
Yep.
we got back to the gym, the first machine we got on, um, I guess he overdid it and he re-injured his ankle. I'm like, how did you re-injure your ankle on a machine? Like, how did you, that's a stationary object and you're moving your body in it. But yeah, I've injured myself so many times at the gym. And so the idea of having more awareness and just, taking it slow, making sure our body's in the right space, in the right
Sure.
alignment, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, you're in the right space. So what
Yeah.
can you teach us here to help us have
Yeah.
better body awareness so we can prevent injuries?
Wow, that's a good question. I think it's to be fair, it's kind of tough to teach someone awareness without being there with them because I've worked with enough people now. Don't get me wrong, I'm not the most experienced practitioner. I'm only 26, but I've worked with enough people now to really appreciate the fact that not many people have awareness of their body. And that's why, a quick sidebar, I think people should absolutely get their children involved in gymnastics or dance to really start to develop that awareness from a young age, because gymnasts and dancers, even if they are not maybe the most brutally strong or brutally fast athletes, they have a really good base of understanding their body in space that they can
Mm.
then transfer to any exercise or any sport that they want to. I mean, there's stories of football players who, their parents made them take gymnastics, and you have these 6'5", 300-pound guys able to do backflips, and they're just, I mean, it's just unbelievable stuff. So, um, that's a quick sidebar for that. But to develop awareness, I would say, one, you have to have a reference. You have to have something that you trust to be, for example, straight, so that you can compare whether or not you're straight. Get your husband or wife to take a photo of you with, like, you pick a string. An example that, people, when they're first learning how to assess posture, that they use is they have a string hanging from the ceiling, and then they line it up directly in between the people's feet, and then they take a picture of them and they show them how maybe their nose is not directly in line with the string like they would think if they were even. Or the other way you can do it is you can stand next to a wall, and maybe you have too much curve in your lumbar spine, but you don't know that. Or maybe your hips really fall forward. So you put your shoulders and your head on the wall, and you see how much space is between your lower back and the wall. And maybe you thought it was going to be a little bit, but it turns out to be a lot. So you have that transcendental reference to know, because you trust that the wall is built vertical, right? So you have to hopefully, at least, if your carpenter was good, but you have to have something that you trust to be your standard, so that you can have that thing to compare against, right? And then from there, then you have to start to develop movement practices. I mean, you have to start to really try to do movement with an intention. And that intention can be anything as simple as, I mean, when I wake up in the morning, I do a gentle routine where I just start to move my body a little bit. So I roll my feet back and forth, left to right. I roll them front to back. I try to do a little figure eight with my feet, little figure eight with my knees. And I really don't do it just to accomplish it. I try to do it, at least when I was first doing it, to see how it felt. Is it easier to do it to my right? Is it easier to do it to my left?
Mm.
Okay, when I move my pelvis, is it easier to stick my butt out, or is it easier to tuck my tail? Do I have a little pain when that happens? Okay, if I move my spine, if I try to move it left or right, can I actually move that? Or, like, another thing that your people can do at home, which is an interesting thing to try to do, I'll try to explain it, is take your arm out to the side, okay, so that your palm is facing the ground. All right, you there with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Now turn your hand all the way down so that your palm is facing backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you see that?
Yep.
Now what I want you to do is keep your palm facing backwards, but turn your bicep to the ceiling. Were you able to do it?
Uh, okay.
Okay, another
Yeah.
way of doing
Yeah,
that.
so
All
my
right, another
elbow's
way of doing
bent a
that.
little bit. Is the elbow supposed to
Okay,
be
so
bent a little bit?
we'll start from the beginning again. All right, so take your arm out to the side with your palm facing the floor.
Yep.
Okay, now turn your palm towards the back wall.
Okay.
Okay, if you look at your elbow, now your bicep is facing more towards the floor, right?
My bicep is, yeah, floor and
Yeah,
also kind of in front of me.
kind of in front, right?
Like a
That downward
45
angle, maybe.
degree angle. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Now what I want you to do is keep your bicep facing that exact same place and turn your hand back flat.
Okay.
Okay. Now, without moving your hand, turn your bicep back to the ceiling.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Do you see how your elbow and your hand can move separately?
Yeah.
Okay. Now what I want you to try to do, the next level is keep your hand flat
Uh-huh.
the whole time and now turn your bicep to the floor.
Yeah.
Can you do it?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So that is your body's awareness of I know the difference between my hand and my wrist, my elbow and my shoulder. But a lot of people, especially if they have injury, they go, okay, they can turn it down, they can turn it back. But then if they try to differentiate the movement at their elbow from the movement at their hand, they can't do it. And it's not because you and I are from a different planet that we can do it. It's just because it's just because our brain knows how to move our elbow instead of move the whole thing.
Mm.
And that is body awareness. And so there's different practices for that for everything. It could just be, all right, inverting and everting the ankle, rolling the knees around, moving the lumbar spine, moving things left to right. A good thing that I try to teach people when they first come in, especially if they have a lot of back pain, is just what's called the good morning exercise. So essentially all you do is you just kind of sit on your bum, you bend your knees to wherever they're comfortable. Most people is a little less than 90 degrees, or sorry, a little more than 90 degrees. So nice and relaxed, kind of like a butterfly would be open. And all you do is hold onto your knees, you lift yourself up really tall, you feel your sit bones on the floor. So you feel those hard bones like that would be if you felt those on a hard chair, they'd be uncomfortable. And all you do is just try to tilt just your pelvis back and then roll your pelvis forward. And so that starts to teach you, okay, I know where my pelvis is. Okay. And a lot of people, when they do that, they start to move their pelvis and then their head goes way forward or their chest moves a lot. And I have to educate them that your pelvis is here and not up there. Right. So start to move just the pelvis and then you can increase it. And so you can say, okay, I'm moving my pelvis and more of my lumbar spine. Okay, now I know better where my lumbar spine is in my body. And then you go from the lumbar spine to thoracic, and then you can go all the way up and down. But that's an educational exercise that teaches them how to differentiate different parts of their body. And then, I mean, when you're doing exercise at the gym, really try to pay attention to just what you're doing, being mindful of what you're doing. And then, if you're really interested in learning more body awareness, you go out and you seek out a professional that's going to be able to teach you, whether it be, yoga, or I prefer or, recommend doing the ELDOA because of how precise it is. You really learn a lot about your body and how to manage all the pieces at one time.
I learned a bit of Z Health. I don't know. Have you heard of that? It was developed by a chiropractor, and he explains that uh, when we have injury, that we compensate. The body's compensating to kind of protect it. But then when the injury is healed, it's like we still have this neurological map of
Yeah, totally.
holding this pattern. And like you just showed, that like you just said, that when someone has had an injury in the past, they might not be able to right away move their arm separate from their wrist and move their shoulder separate from their elbow, that it might just all move in one, because if they had
Yeah,
an
totally.
elbow injury, then their brain is still holding that injury memory. And that
Mm-hmm.
in Z Health, he has people do small circular movements with each joint to reset the map. Um, have you heard of that system, or is this similar to it?
I haven't heard of it. No, I haven't heard of it. But I mean, to be honest, I'm really a fan of anything that gets people one moving, and then in the context of moving, gets them moving more mindfully. Anything that gets them to start to do that, where they just pay attention to what it is that they're doing, is something I'm all on board for.
Well, it sounds like
But I haven't heard of that specifically. No.
intuitively, it sounds like you intuitively were doing what he also intuitively figured out, which is sit there and roll each joint and just pay attention and go, wow, okay, this is how this joint feels. This is left wrist versus right wrist, right? Left knee
Yeah,
versus right knee. And you're warming them up in the morning, you're getting the synovial fluids going, but you're also getting that body awareness and going, okay, let's just come back into the body, which would also be very relaxing. It would turn off the sympathetic nervous system response. It would help the body have better, like you said, better circulation. Better circulation happens when we're in that rest and digest state. And so you just
totally.
spend how many minutes a day would you say you do that in the morning?
In the morning, maybe just three, maybe just, yeah,
Yeah.
nice and easy, nice and quick. Yeah, I'll do that, and then I'll usually hop in the shower and then get my day started. But it's just kind of nice because unfortunately we kind of live in a world where most people are a little sleep deprived, so they're setting their alarm for the exact last minute that they would absolutely need to wake up to make it to work on time. And so they don't really allow themselves that time in the morning for their body to really warm up
Mm.
to the day-to-day life. And so I try to give myself that little bit of time, and, just allowing myself that 3 minutes just to kind of move and just, really not only, open my eyes and wake up, but also get my body ready to kind of go get the day is something I think is really important. And I mean, and it's also, most people's first instinct when they wake up is, especially if they're busy and they have a lot of responsibilities, like, okay, let me check my email. What did I miss? Let me do this. And it's just nice to take that first couple minutes to just say, hey, body, like, good morning. How you doing? Like, how's my knee? How's my shoulder? How's my head? Like, just kind of take that time for yourself. And so I'll admit I'm not always the best with it. There's some mornings where I'm like, man, I'm just going to the shower and I feel like doing this. But most mornings I'll try to make that
You
time.
could do it in the shower.
I could do it in the shower, but I don't know if a slippery, soapy
Oh, there you
environment is
go.
my best
Sure.
environment for body awareness. I mean, it's definitely high stakes, so that's always kind of fun, but but I don't know if it's the best place to to do that. But I think it just kind of reminds me of why I'm so pumped about. There's certain things that I feel like kind of come to you that you don't, maybe, that just kind of pop in your brain that,
Yeah.
I can't really take responsibility for thinking up. But there was just a time when I thought of the tagline for my business, or the slogan for my business, or whatever it is. It's move more aware. And so I want people to move. I want people to move more. And then I want people to move more awareness. And so that awareness can be whether it's mentally, emotional, with how you're moving throughout the day, what kind of baggage are you bringing with you, what kind of energy are you giving off to the people you're interacting with, and then also physically, like, how are you moving? It's not just that you're moving, but like, what's the quality of your movement? Most people, especially in the Western culture, it's more about go, 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 go. I did 20,000 steps. I burned 6,000 calories at CrossFit class. I'm not trying to talk about our CrossFit or anything. I did 4,000, burpees today. It's just like, okay, good. But how well did you do them? What is that really giving you in the long term? How, like, what kind of image and what kind of information are you sending to your brain about the quality of your movement and not just the quantity of it?
I like that you're pointing out the quality of the movement is more important than just the quantity of the movement, because in quantity of movement is where we can really injure ourselves, but in the
Totally.
quality of the movement is where we can heal ourselves.
Absolutely. That's where all of the power lies. And I think, as a kind of it's kind of a general life thing too, but I mean, it's really about the quality of your life and not necessarily the quantity. It's so interesting to me. I think a lot of times about people who are, doing the longevity stuff. And I also wonder, it's like, okay, good, you're doing all this stuff, but what's the quality of the life that you're living right now? And how good is it? And if it's good, and I mean, I would like, one of the things I kind of came up with, which is like, I want to live a little and live a lot. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of times when you're out having a good time and people say, "Oh, come on, live a little," and it's like, okay, I'll live a little, I'll do some things, but I also want to balance that with living a lot. I want to live a long time. So trying to balance those two things. So yeah, sure, there needs to be some quality, or excuse me, there needs to be some quantity in your life. But I think it really comes down to, and most people would probably agree, that like it's really about the quality of the relationships that you have, the food that you eat, the movement that you do, the sleep that you get. All of those things are really what create a balanced and beautiful life, and it's really about the quality. So I think movement is no different than that. It's especially in our culture, it's about we're pretty short-sighted in a lot of ways, where we just kind of say, okay, I want my muscle to get bigger. I want my muscle to get bigger. I want to be more ripped and lean. It's like, okay, I understand that. And I also want to do that and wanted to do that when I was, 16. But at the same time, like, how well do you move?
Mm-hmm.
How much pain do you have? How good is the quality of your movement? And where is that going to bring you in 2, 3, 5 years? And if all of those questions are answered well, and you're happy with those answers, then you can just, plug and go along.
Right. I love it. Looking deeper into what your motivation is for wanting to shape your body in a certain way is important, because that, like you point out, there are those consequences that come down the road. So we want to make sure we're creating a quality of life and a longevity in our life, but also having a great life right now while we're doing it. So
Yeah,
it's the
exactly.
both, yeah. So
Yeah, it's both. Absolutely.
what is Soma training? That's another thing that you do, Soma training and Soma therapy.
Yeah, sure. So those programs are programs that were developed by Dr. Guy Voyer, who's also the gentleman who developed the ELDOA exercises. He's everybody has that person, that teacher that they really resonate with, and that they find to really provide a message that they just think is powerful, and philosophically they agree with, and then also academically or otherwise they really find to be truth for them. And he's been that teacher for me. So I want to thank him right now. Thank you, Dr. Foyer. You're amazing. But those two programs are his programs for both trainers, so Soma Training and Soma Therapy. And what those programs are is, I'll talk about the training aspect. What those programs are is they really try to teach you how to work with every single part of the body, so that no matter who walks in to your facility, you can at least in some way help and understand what they have going on, because because the level of the training that you've gotten is so in depth. Um, One of the things that's interesting about it, and that I respect so much about it, is that it does break the body down into its smallest pieces. So when you go and take a class, you might take a class for 3 days just on segmental strengthening of muscles in your legs, right? So there's a whole bunch of muscles in your legs, and people might go, okay, why do I need to strengthen this specific fiber of, this quadricep? It's like, okay, well, yes, that's really specific, but if you take a bigger step back and you understand the global picture, it makes a lot of sense to go after the link in the chain that you know to be the weakest link in the chain. So only with specific tools can I think you really be holistic in the way that you approach things. So each ligament of the knee has an exercise for proprioception. Each segment of the spine has an exercise for the ELDOA. Each muscle has a segmental strengthening exercise. And then there's exercises to bring the big picture all back together. So the Soma training, what it really does is it divides the body into all of its functional pieces, teaches you how to work with each individual one, and then gives you the context to bring it all back together in the bigger picture. And so for me as a trainer, it's like absolutely changed and really made my practice, because I feel confident that anybody that comes into my studio, I'll at least be able to get them on the road towards their goal, whether it be bigger, faster, stronger, or whether it be no pain or, longevity or whatever it is. I feel really confident that these exercises, because of their specificity and because of their precision, can really move people towards whatever goal it is that they have.
So that's Soma training.
That's Soma
And
Training.
it
Exactly.
taught you how to work with all body style, body shapes, body, challenges, and the goals that people have.
Yeah, it's an exercise curriculum that really teaches you how to respect the individualistic nature of each person. So, one thing, and this is a good kind of time to talk about what people call functional exercise, right? So that's a really big term that is used super frequently. And the thing that I would first off start by saying is that it seems to me that most functional exercise looks the same, right? They tried to consider it, it has a similar style look to it, whether it be, a certain type of kettlebell thing or a certain type of TRX movement, or if you're not familiar with TRX, it's just the suspension straps, but I'm sure you know what those are. It's just a specific looking type of movement. And the one thing that I would say about that is that, okay, what's functional for me as someone who, does manual therapy over a table and teaches people how to train all day versus functional exercise for someone who's sitting at a desk versus functional exercise for someone who does hair or, is a car mechanic. They're totally different functional exercises.
Mm.
And then the other thing is, it's like, okay, what's your goal? Okay, if your goal is to build muscle, then yeah, a bicep curl is a functional exercise for that particular goal. So I think a lot of times in the exercise field, we need to take a step back and we say, a lot of people get really dogmatic and say, oh, anything that isn't functional training is bad or whatever it is. It's like, okay, well, functional for you and for me are two different things. And then otherwise, what's your goal for that? And so the SomaTraining program really teaches you how to respect what is functional in quotes for that person, and then also how to apply that to every single person, because everybody is totally beautiful and unique and different, right? So, you're obviously different than I am, and not only are we different, but maybe you have a different way of thinking, a different type of emotional system, a different brain, and a different orthopedic history. So the way that I teach you an exercise or how you execute an exercise might be different from how I execute the exercise based off of our anatomy, based off of a whole number of factors. And what the program really does is it allows you to take all of those factors into consideration and, give the person the best exercise, as opposed to just saying everyone needs to be able to deadlift, or everyone needs to be able to do a kettlebell swing, or everyone needs to be able to do whatever. Because the truth is that not everybody needs to do the same thing, because not everybody is the same.
Right. I just imagine the challenges that someone has sitting at a desk all day versus if they're doing hair or if they're a mechanic, their body's in a different position all day. So it wouldn't benefit them to just do the same exercises, the same machines at the gym. You're looking to support them in, and understanding what their body does every day. So you can support them in being balanced.
Yeah,
That makes
absolutely.
sense.
I mean, if you have a chiropractor, for example, well, a chiropractor is probably doing manual work and adjusting most of the day. So maybe he's leaning forward over the top of somebody for 4 hours a day.
Mm.
So that's a totally different stress on his body than someone who's like a hairdresser whose arms are up by their head all day working on people's hair, or different than somebody who's a car mechanic who's laying on their back all day, or underneath a car. Like it's three totally different classes of people just in those examples. And so to say that their training all needs to look and be the same is super reductionist. And the goal is to be precise so that you can help the person as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. So to put everyone in the same box and say everyone needs to do a certain type of training is really narrow. And so when you have the tools to work with the body, then you can apply those tools to any body. So SomaTraining is just Soma, which just means body. So it's body training. So we know things about the anatomy, we know things about biomechanics, and then we can just apply those, if you understand it well, to the people that walk into you and say, okay, Joe walks in, he has a problem with his knee. Should he be doing this, or should he strengthen a specific muscle around his knee? Okay, how do you strengthen that specific muscle? Well, you do it like this, but you have to modify it to the fact that Joe has pain around this point. So everyone's different. Not everyone is the textbook. And so if you only have the textbook to work with, then you're going to be really limited as a practitioner to how you can apply that to different people when they come see you.
If someone comes to you and they have pain and they want to work out, they want to strengthen their body, but they have pain. So,
Yeah.
maybe the mechanic or the hairdresser has like a frozen shoulder, or the person that works at the desk all day has carpal tunnel. The chiropractor has lower back pain because
Which is very common, by the
right,
way.
right.
Very common.
So they
Which
come.
I get, because you're leaning over people all
Right,
day.
exactly. Yeah, my chiropractor has a pain in his hand from how he adjusts, and that's he's developed some kind of arthritis, and he's been doing it for like over 30 years. And so
Yeah.
he figured out really creative ways of still being an amazing chiropractor and not wearing down his hand. So but someone comes to you and they want to work out, but they're really afraid because they
Hmm.
have pain, and pain
Sure.
has stopped them from working out in the past. Do you start by doing ELDOA with them, or what do you do first to help get them out of pain so then they can train? Or do you train
Yeah.
like at the same time? Like how does that work?
Yeah, it's really a concurrent process. So most of the time it's going to happen at the same time. So they'll use that's the beautiful thing that I really love about these exercises is that you can get someone who is afraid of exercise or hesitant about exercise because they've been hurt in the past, or every time they go and do something it hurts more, or they just don't want to be in pain anymore. But the beautiful thing about these exercises is that a lot of times you use the exercise to help start to work on the pain. So it's like a snowball effect, you know? You do more exercise, you feel a little bit better. You do more exercise, you feel better and better and better. And then before you know it, like you're using the exercise as a maintenance thing because you're no longer in pain. And then you can start back on the road of, classic fitness training if that's your goal. But most of the people that I work with, they come and see me because they either had a friend that worked with me and they had results, or they've just kind of tried everything else and they still are, not really where they want to be. And most people, it's a concurrent process of a little bit of manual therapy and then a lot of exercise. And I try to do as much exercise as I can in the context of that person because it really gives them the power. If I have someone that comes and sees me and I only see them to do manual therapy, then yes, I'm helping them and I believe that I'm helping them, but it's not that it's too much power in my hands, but it's not enough power in their hands, and I really want the people's that I work with, their mentality to start to, here's a plug, shift. That's how I came up with the business, is just I was starting to talk to myself and I came up with that name. And so it's really been great because it's kind of stuck and it's made a lot of sense for me as far as the paradigm goes. But yeah, to really start to shift, because if they say, okay, yes, I learned these exercises from Jake, but I've been doing them and I'm getting the result by doing them. I've only seen him once or twice. So it's not that I saw him that got me the result, but it's been doing the exercise that got me the result. Okay, I can do this. Like I can make the change to myself that I want to see. And so to be a part of that process is the amazing thing for me, because you just teach people to really, realize their own power, and you do it through exercise. So really my main goal is to get people to start to exercise by themselves. And so that's not an original idea to me. I mean, Dr. Boyer, one of his best quotes is, "You are your own best therapist." And so whether that be a mentally emotional thing or a physical thing, it's really, the power is in you. And so, yes, I have the tools to teach you how to do that, but really it's up to you to get the result for yourself. And so, most people that are successful with me are the ones who really take the responsibility to do the exercise by themselves, to follow the home program, and to execute that by themselves, and and that's how they get the result. And so, yes, it's some manual therapy, but I really try to use mostly exercise to get people back moving and to start the ball down the road. Like I had a lady who came and saw me, and she was so afraid to do anything. I mean, even
Hmm.
walk. I was like, we were doing some really, really gentle exercise, like the good morning thing that I was telling you about. And she had pain during that. And so I know that her nervous system is really guarded. I know mentally, emotionally, she's really protective of what she has going on. And so I was like, all right, before you do any exercise, all I want you to do is just go outside and do a nice, easy, like 10-minute walk. Go get some fresh air, maybe some sunshine. In New Orleans, it's super hot, so that's you have to deal with that. But go outside and get a 10-minute walk. And she was afraid. She was like, well, walking hurts my back. And I was like, you know, okay, is there anything that doesn't hurt your back? And she's like, well, if I lay down in this specific way. And I was like, we have to work together, because if you're going to get where you want to go, which is picking up your grandkids and going out to dance with your husband, then, we need to start somewhere. And so I got her to start to do 10-minute walks a day. She's like, well, it's a little painful, but I do feel better after. And then now she's walking 30 minutes a day doing her exercises, and, everything is a lot better. And so it's just that process, really getting people to try to take power back into their own hands. To maybe they experience a little bit of pain at the beginning, but they feel accomplished after. There's a whole bunch of factors that go into it, to getting someone from a place where they're afraid to do exercise to back to the place where they're, going out and dancing with their husband.
What helped her to get out of pain? Was it that not moving was continuing to have the pain, or what was it that had her be free of it?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I really don't think it was anything that I did. Um, I think it's a little esoteric to say this, but I think a lot of people's pain, whether it be at least initially or a lot of times the chronic pain, is a mentally emotional adaptation from any kind of stress or trauma that they store in their body.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I think hers was a mental emotional thing mostly. I didn't say that to her because she came to me for an orthopedic reason, so I tried to keep it as in that context as I could. But I knew that if we got her in some way out of her own way, that she would really start to see how powerful she was and um, how really the pain couldn't hold her back, if you know what I mean. So getting her to move got her to see, oh, okay, I can do this. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bothersome at first, but then she said, okay, I can do this. Well, if I can do 10 minutes, then maybe I can do 15. And if I can do 15, then maybe I can do 20. And you know what? I'm doing 20 and I'm feeling better. And okay, all right, I'm doing 20, I'm doing 25, and then 30. And then I think in reality, she let she let her guard down a little bit, and she started to get out of her own way to heal. A lot of people hold on to these problems that they have, and they won't let them go for any number of reasons. And as a trainer, you do have to wear several hats. A lot of people come in and they tell you about their day, or they tell you about their problem that they're having with their kids, and it's like, I love that because I love working with people. I don't want to just work with a robot, that's covered in muscle. I want to work with a human. But a lot of people, they have these problems that they don't really let go. And so when they come to see me, part of my thing is working with the mental emotional system to start to get them out of their own way so they can progress in the orthopedic system. And then a lot of times, it solves itself over time.
I love it. And people who are in pain don't like to be told that it's all in your head. it's
No,
it's
they
like
don't.
because it
They
is
don't.
real. The pain is real,
It
but
is.
there's proof now that the body, the mind can create physical pain that feels real.
Absolutely.
Um I believe it was Johnny Sarno that wrote the book Healing Back Pain, and he discusses how he could see that when we had mental emotional issues going on, that especially that we were stuffing away and
Yeah.
procrastinating to face, that
Yeah.
the mind would create ischemia in a muscle, would actually tighten the muscle so much that it would cause a tremendous amount of pain, because there was a lack of blood flow in the area, kind of like trigger points where the blood flow is
Sure.
cut off in that muscle. And just like trigger points, it would cause radiating pain too, so it could mimic a pinched nerve. It could mimic a lot of different symptoms, and he saw that commonly it was lower back pain that would be created when someone was having emotional issues that they weren't facing. That the unconscious mind really wants us to resolve things, but when we're in a
Sure.
state of anxiety or panic, and we're faced with choices and they're really hard, so we procrastinate them, that the unconscious mind will tense a muscle or tense muscle fibers and create ischemia and create that level of pain that is real. And yet,
Absolutely.
and we can move and we can put hot packs on it, and that'll give relief temporarily, but it'll keep coming back until we look at and face the mental emotional stuff. So it's
Absolutely.
real and physical pain. And
Sure.
but like you said, she freed herself up, and she had to move past that fear of moving
Hmm.
in order and to get that
Totally.
freedom. And so you helped her face that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I tried to do my part in helping her see that. And I think giving her a little bit of accountability with me as someone who was going to check in on her and see if she was walking and see if she was doing these things was helpful for her. But really, it was up to her to make the decision to, in part, trust me, but in part, the other part, trust herself.
Mm.
And then the other thing that I find so interesting is that a lot of people, kind of like you said, they don't want to be told that their pain is all in their head. And the problem with that is that just because it's in your head doesn't mean it's not real.
Mm-hmm.
It's like people assume that if I were to be, extraordinarily blunt with this lady and say, ma'am, I see that you have back pain, but it's all in your head, she would have been totally turned off, and she would she'd have been like, okay, I'm leaving. And I would have understood, because that's that's pretty insensitive. But the reality is that even if I do say that it's all in your head, that doesn't make it not real. It just makes it not in the place that you thought it was, it doesn't mean that it's any less valuable or any less tangible or any less, real. It just means that it's somewhere else. And that's all that, is really important to take away from that, is just because, yeah, I mean, if you look at the hierarchy of your body, and Paul Chek, of the Czech Institute did an amazing job with this graphic, and he has this totem pole. And at the very, very top of the totem pole is the spirit, or the mind. And so the mind, if you look all the way down the totem pole, you have, the visceral system, you have the breathing, you have your nutrition, you have all that stuff down the totem pole. But really what's in charge is the big boss, is the mind. And so if you think, okay, I have back pain, well, yeah, sure, you have back pain, and I agree with that, but maybe the back pain is caused by something up higher down the line, So it doesn't have to be another physical thing down the line. It could be an emotional, mental thing down the line that you need to work on to solve the back pain that you're having. And then the way I kind of try to work with people is I give them exercises that I think will in some way get the water out of the boat, and then we'll give them exercises to fix the hole. Because if you just fix the leak, but you don't take the water out of the boat, then you could still have some residual pain. But if you just take the water out of the boat, then you're going to be taking the water out of the boat your whole life, And so that is a process that you have to work with somebody on, is one, getting the symptoms that they have to go away, and then two, getting the cause of the symptoms in the first place to be resolved. And that could be, the human body is complex, and the human organism is amazingly complex. And that's why it's such a beautiful field to be in and to work with people on this, is because it's not just plugging numbers into a spreadsheet. I mean, you're working with a dynamic, diverse history of a human that walks into your office every day. And so you have to treat them with that same respect. And so if you just say, oh, you have back pain, I need to go straight to your back and, cut off a piece of your disc, or, do this, then yeah, you're going to miss the picture. And that makes me think about a gentleman that came and saw me last week, 2 weeks ago. He flew down from Colorado, and he sent me all these videos of his neurosurgeon showing that in between L4 and L5, he had narrowing in the space for the spinal cord, and how it was exactly 103 millimeters, where his other spaces were 110. And it's like, okay, I get it, there's narrowing there, but there are also people who have severe narrowing who don't have any pain. So it's not necessarily all the time that thing is causing the pain. It could be any multitude of factors that's causing the pain, and the weak link that you have because of your history or because of your structure is what's paying. But someone who has that same narrowing maybe has no pain, and has no pain for the rest of their life because they have better hydration, or because they're not as stressed, or because they didn't play the same amount of sports that you did growing up. So I really try to do my best to treat people as holistically as possible, because, that's who's walking into your office.
So what happened with the gentleman? You practice in New Orleans, so people
Yep.
local to you can come visit you. I have a friend that lives in Houston, and she said it's like a 5.5 hour drive or something like that. So I mean, you could
Yeah.
have people from Texas just driving to see you.
Yeah. Come on
You
down,
know,
Texans.
yeah, Florida, Louisiana, Georgia, all that whole area could be coming in just to drive to you. But you had someone fly in from Colorado,
Hmm.
showing you the neurosurgeon stuff. So he had pain for
Yeah.
how long?
He had pain at this point for 4 months. For 4 months. Yeah, he had pain for 4 months. He is as type A of a person and go-getter of a person as you're ever going to meet. I mean, he's an absolute stud. I'll give him that. So he's an absolute stud. I
Yeah.
mean, if I look and move like him when I'm in my early 60s, then I will be doing a good job. But with that same context, he had never stretched. He had never taken time to stretch. He was severely dehydrated. You could just feel in his tissue, and I had my hands on him, that it's like, instead of feeling soft and hydrated and well nourished, it was dry like leather. So of course you're going to have more predisposition to tearing certain things, or having you have less leeway when you have that quality of tissue.
Hmm.
So part of the thing is just starting to get him to drink more water, starting to stretch. Because if you're 6 foot tall, but your connective tissue system thinks that you're 5'8", well, then it's going to be pretty difficult for you to move well, and then something is going to have to pay. And so over time, he had just developed this posture. He had developed the amount of stress in his body, and he developed the quality of tissue that his body finally said, "Hey, man, we gotta do something about this." And so, gave him exercises for the posture of his head, gave him exercises for his breathing, gave him exercises to get the water out of the boat in his lumbar spine, gave him exercises for the nerve peripherally. And now he just texted me the other day saying that his pain was an 8 out of 10, and now it's a 4 out of 10. So he's making progress by himself. So yeah, he came down and we spent a lot of time together, got to know him, and it was awesome. It's awesome for me to work with people like that because whenever they come and see you, they're really motivated. They're really trying to work on it. And you get to really be in the zone when you're working with people like that. I mean, I saw them for 3 hours a day for 2 days. And those 3 hours, I mean, they go by in an absolute flash, which is awesome because it's almost like you get transported to another realm and then you come back, it's like, whoa, it's 5 o'clock already. But when you're working with somebody like that, it's really awesome because you can start to see it change in their brain when they start to realize, oh, these things that I've been doing to myself or that I haven't been paying attention to, these might be the things that can help me. Where, before this, he was scheduled to have surgery at the end of July. And as far as I understand, he's no longer going to have that. So,
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. I love it when people choose to try alternative methods before just jumping into an elected surgery.
hmm
Because it's there's one of my mentors is old school naturopath. He's yelled at someone who had something removed, some organ removed from their body, and then they wanted help. Like I think it was their thyroid. They're like, the
yeah,
doctors removed my thyroid, and he's like, and then they were asking for help. He's like, I can't help you when your thyroid's in the garbage. Like, I can't
right,
help you get
totally.
your thyroid health back. It's been cut out of you. And he was more
Yeah,
yelling out of like sheer frustration that because he's also a pathologist, and so before he became a naturopath, and he saw that like you can reverse so many diseases that surgeons just go, okay, well, let's just cut it out of you. It's time.
totally. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that we have to work against as people who are offering alternative means to these things is because fortunately or unfortunately, most people's disposition is that when they have a problem, they go see a specialist. And one of my favorite quotes is that a specialist knows more and more about less and less until they know everything about nothing. And that's the thing that I really think about. Like if you go see a neurosurgeon is great at what they do, which is neurosurgery. They're not gonna be experts in all of these other fields that most likely are going to be the cause of your problem.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, some people need surgery. Like there's just certain things that you cannot fix with an ELDOA. I mean, it's just not going to happen. But at the same time, you have to think, okay, what is surgery? Like you already have a trauma to your body. Well, guess what? You have to create more trauma to go in there to fix the trauma. So are you doing anything before to prepare the tissue for that type of surgery? And what's the quality of the stuff that you're doing after to make sure that you don't have another problem? Because it's not so uncommon for someone to have a back surgery and then 6 months later be like, oh man, that didn't really work. I need another back surgery. Or for someone to have a fusion in their neck and be like, oh geez, I still have the same neck pain that I had. And now I have to go get another fusion to now fix the problem because something was stuck in my neck or mechanically stuck in my neck. And then now everything above and below has to compensate for that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so uncommon for that. And then as a quick tangent, the other thing is like when you go see a specialist, they specialize and they spend a lot of time specializing in that thing. But whenever you have your blinders on to focus on one thing, you do miss the things that are around you. So a lot of times, for example, like people will have a problem with their cervical spine. Well, guess what's right below your cervical spine? Your rib cage and your thoracic spine, and then your shoulder. And then what's above that is your head. And then what connects? I mean, the connections are unbelievable. Like just for people who are really interested, your pericardium, so you have a serous and a fibrous pericardium, which is the fascia of your heart, has connections forward to your sternum, below to your diaphragm, and above to your cervical spine.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have bad posture for your neck, well, guess what? Then there's differentiating tension in the pericardium. So maybe your heart doesn't work as well as it needs to. Okay, your heart doesn't work as well as it needs to. Well, now there's differentiating tension on your sternum, okay, which is where your ribs attach, and on your diaphragm, where your diaphragm goes all the way down and attaches to your lumbar spine and into your pelvis. Well, guess what? There's no distinction between those connections. If I pull on one end of the chain, the other end of the chain is going to move. So where you have the problem is just dependent on the person.
Have you helped someone like get lower blood pressure, get healthier heart, like better heart health from using ELDOA and the Soma therapy?
Yeah, absolutely. Because one, if you start to drink water, okay, most people are severely not under dehydrated. That's a double negative. Most of the people are severely dehydrated. I think that's what I meant to say. So first off, you introduce more water, so now you have less resistance in the tube, and the water flows. Blood is viscous, so it moves more easily. The other thing is that now you have better water in the tissue, so the tissue is more malleable. So when the heart has to push, it doesn't have to push against as much peripheral resistance. So now the blood pressure can be lower. The other thing is you start to work on the posture. So now the posture, in quotes, of the vein and of the circulatory system is in a better alignment. So now it doesn't have to work as hard to move blood to the periphery. So now the blood pressure goes lower. The other thing is that whenever the posture of the head is in a better way, there's less tension on the heart. The heart is organized in relation to gravity in a more in a more perfect way, like the way that it was intended to be. And so whenever you work on all of those factors, the blood pressure a lot of times goes down. The other thing is that when you work with these exercises, not only do you affect mechanically the bone, but on the front of the spine is the sympathetic chain ganglion. So the autonomic nervous system sits directly on the spine, and it doesn't just sit
Mm.
there because it's glued there. It sits there because the fascia holds it there, and the fascia integrally holds it to the bone. So if you affect the bone and you affect the posture, then you affect the sympathetic nervous system. You affect the sympathetic nervous system, blood pressure's coming down, baby. Everything's looking good, you know. So all of these factors go together to really holistically start to help the person.
I love that. A few years
Yeah.
ago, it was 2010, my husband single-handedly carried all of our furniture into a 26-foot Penske and we moved from Las Vegas to Seattle. And
Mm,
we didn't hire anyone to do it. It was all him. I was busy like packing boxes or something.
yeah.
And a few days later, and he's a carpenter for 20 years, so he was used to carrying heavy loads. He's a pretty big guy, 6'7". And
That is a pretty big guy.
right? Well,
Yeah.
and we were under a lot of stress. You know, we had just, big move, new, like just lots of new changes. And he woke up one morning and his lips were blue. And he's like, my heart's doing something funky. And I freak
Mm,
out because I'm like, what's going on?
yeah.
So it took me a bit to convince him that I'm driving him to the hospital. And that's when we found out that he had AFib. So his heart was, every chamber of his heart was just spasming. And that's why his lips were blue and he's having problems breathing.
Mm,
And then they had to reset his heart, which was again really scary. And the
yeah, totally.
cardiologist said, "This is holiday heart. You know, it's probably because you're under a lot of stress." And we were at the time we just bought a an espresso machine. We thought, we're living in Seattle. We need to do the coffee thing.
Get the coffee culture going.
Yeah,
I love it.
exactly. We got the coffee culture going a little too much. And so he was overdoing it with the espresso. And at the time, I think like we were still drinking alcohol. We not that we were ever alcoholics, but we don't partake in poison anymore. So,
Sure.
but back then, we weren't as into health as we are definitely now. And,
Yeah.
and so between the cardiologist was just like, well, between the stress of the move and your new lifestyle and the excessive caffeine and alcohol, it's right around Christmas. So she's like, this is the most AFib I ever see is right around Christmas and New Year's. This is just totally normal.
Totally.
Totally normal. Okay, great. And she's like, well, we should do a stress test just in case. And you're fine. Well, it happened again. A year
Mm,
later, he was carrying a 6-year-old child on his shoulders who was jumping because she got excited. So she
mm,
was jumping as we were going for a walk, and it was a friend. We were walking with a friend and her daughter. And the next day he woke up with AFib again. Not as bad as the first time, but it was definitely scary. Well, at this point, we were seeing a naturopath, and the naturopath said something really interesting. The naturopath said the when there's compression on the thoracic spine, and I think it's T6, T7, but I could be wrong, that there's a
okay.
nerve that comes out. You'd be able to correct me. There's a part of the one of the nerves that innervates the heart comes
Okay.
from the thoracic spine. And so when it's
Mm.
compressed, it can send a false signal to the heart. And
Yeah.
the heart is completely healthy, but the compression on the spine is what's triggering the AFib. Well, that made sense. Now we're thinking ourselves, okay, this is the second time it's happened. And so the chiropractor or the naturopath said, I want you to rest. I get an inversion table, do hydrotherapy, hold hot, cold showers, and just rest and see your chiropractor.
Yeah.
And it went away
Totally.
on its own. Like his heart was, it was a scary 3 days, and his
Yeah.
heart was beating irregularly, and then it just reset and everything was good. We're like, okay, that's a little scary, but now we know. So a few
Right.
years later, we're doing CrossFit, and he's learning how to do deadlifts. And the next day, he not only wakes up, but he faints. He wakes up, he
Mm.
faints, he hits the floor, and he has AFib. So we're
Wow.
like, whoa. And that was his first time lifting heavy objects since the last, AFib occurrence. This was he's only had 3, but 3 acute AFib attacks, it makes you a candidate for a pacemaker.
Mm.
And if we're following, if we had never worked with a naturopath and we had just seen the cardiologist, he would have gone in, for a pacemaker, which they have to burn the
Absolutely.
nerves to the heart and then put in a machine to
Which
that
is
it's
terrifying, by the
terrifying.
way.
Yeah. Put in the machine that beats your heart, that sends a signal for you instead of your body. Meanwhile, there's nothing wrong with the nerve at his heart. It's the compression on his spine. So we did the exact same thing the third time. And we had actually gone to a naturopath, and they did an EEG,
Hmm.
and determined, yes, it is AFib. Okay, great. See your chiropractor, hang upside down, do hot and cold hydrotherapy, and just lie down a lot. And it
Yeah.
reset again. And that was thank goodness that was the last time, because since then he's been doing exercises and supplements and seeing the chiropractor on a regular basis, all to keep his thoracic spine super healthy and decompressed.
Yeah.
and
Perfect.
and and sometimes when he gets a little off or he gets a little tight, he'll just start to feel it. His heart starts to just do a little bit of a skip, and he goes, oh. And I'm like, you got to get back into the chiropractor. What are you doing? Or
Yeah.
do the exercises your chiropractor gave you. And then
Yeah.
it's like he listen to the whisper, right? Listen to the symptoms as they're coming in gently. Don't ignore them and just push through.
Exactly.
But
Exactly. Don't let the little hurts turn into big hurts later.
Right. But if we were to
Yep.
see a traditional MD, it would have gone surgery. And and
Totally.
and it's just
Totally.
and they're amazing doctors. They specialize, like you said, they're doing, more than 8 years of higher education. They're so, they're so intelligent and they're passionate about their field. And yet they're not taught that the compression on the spine can cause AFib. And it just
Yeah.
maddens
Yeah.
me, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's only so much time in a day to learn so much stuff. And, there's like, I'm definitely not an MD, and there's things about pathophysiology and, immunology and things like that they would absolutely blow me out of the freaking water with. And like, that's definitely not my area of expertise. And if someone has a disease like that, I for sure send them to an MD. But when it comes to a lot of other things, unfortunately, they're not really given the tools to be effective with the complexity of the human body that is walking into their office. They have a subset of tools. They have the parameters that they have, which is only a certain amount of time with each person because they're super overloaded with patients, and they only have so much time to make a guess and to give a certain type of treatment for that. And unfortunately, most of the treatments that we have, especially in the Western culture, is just cut and burn, or sew, or whatever they do to
Cut, burn,
people's
and poison.
bodies. Yeah, cut, burn, and poison. And it's just like I have people who it's unbelievable. I have people who come in, and it's funny because they call certain surgeries minimally invasive. And if you ever watch a video of a minimally invasive surgery, I have seen very few things in my life that are more invasive than minimally invasive surgeries. They have to go inside of your body, especially for lumbar spine. They have to go inside your body, cut away bone, snip away disc, burn the disc, sew you back up. I don't know about you, but that's pretty invasive. And so our qualification for what it means to actually have remedies for these things are so skewed to these unbelievable procedures. I mean, if you want to freak yourself out, go watch a hip replacement surgery. I mean, it is absolutely freaking brutal. And people say, yeah, my hip hurts. Maybe in a couple of years I have some arthritis and I'll probably have to get a hip replacement. It's like, are you kidding me right now? Have you seen a freaking surgery like that? Wouldn't you just rather do some freaking stretching and exercise? But unfortunately, this is where I get on my soapbox. Like, unfortunately, we live in a culture right now where people would much rather give away the responsibility to someone else than have to take the responsibility themselves. So they say, oh, my doctor said this. Oh, my this. It's just like, listen to your body, give yourself the opportunity to heal yourself. And then if that doesn't work and you've tried the other options, then you can get surgery. But for your first instinct to get surgery, or to, get your fourth surgery or whatever it is just, it blows my mind. But that's a philosophical thing that is different between where I am now and where I was. I definitely was on the other side of the coin a couple of years ago before I got introduced to these things. And then where most of the population is, because, oh, you have a problem with your knee, go see the orthopedist. What does the orthopedist say? Oh, we took an MRI, you have a problem with your meniscus. What we can do for that is that we can cut out a piece of the meniscus. It's like, maybe you can do something else. It's like, it's just crazy what we turn to and what we think is really valuable therapy. But that's a philosophical thing that is different amongst practitioners. So not good or bad, just different.
Just to add to that story, a few years ago, recently, I mean, it's been the last 4 years, I thought I had a hernia because, I gave birth, right? And so it's kind of, they say it's common for women after
Yep.
giving birth, near my belly button, right? And so I'm like, wow, something's pretty funky feeling near my belly button. I better get this checked out. I go to my doctor, naturopath, of course, and he feels around and he goes, you know what? That really feels like it's a hernia. I'm going to suggest that you go get a surgical consult. And I'm like, I look at him like dead in the eye. Surgery is the last option. I will try 100 alternative therapies. I will travel to Tibet and rub like, I don't know, Tibetan berries on my tummy before
Yeah.
surgery
Yeah.
is an option. It's just my last option. And so
Sure.
luckily I'd heard this old school naturopath that I again mentored me. He says anytime that there's a hernia, go to a Bowen therapist. It's a Bowen technique. It's a kind of like it would be a massage therapist likely who would administer it. And I found a woman who's been a massage therapist since the 80s and been doing Bowen therapy for 15 years. And she's up, 45 minutes north of me. And so went and visited her. And very interesting. She spent most of the time doing range of motion tests to determine where my fascia was. And then she said, yeah, this is not, she goes, well, Vicky, first of all, I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you, I can't diagnose,
Right.
cover
Classic
her butt, right?
disclaimer.
Yeah, exactly. There's a
Yep.
disclaimer,
Totally.
but hint, hint, wink, wink. She's like, this is not a hernia. This is diastasis recti, where it's
Yep.
so many people will go in and get a surgery when it's not needed because the
Yep.
abdomen has separated. And so she did some very minimal techniques. I kind of was like, are you kidding me? She just touched me a few times in different places to adjust the fascia. And then I started feeling like a new person. It was really cool. And then she recommended some exercises, and I went to
Yep.
see her, I think, 4 times. I mean, and
Yep.
again, if I was on the just the MD route, even with my naturopath who told me I should go get a surgical consult, if I had just given away my personal power, I would have been under the knife the next week, and have all of the consequences that come with that versus
Yep.
seeking out other types of therapy. The problem is people who don't know there's other therapies. So I love that you're bringing up that now people know that there's ELDOA, which is spelled ELDOA. And
Correct.
there's the Soma
Yep.
training, the Soma therapy. You do other stuff too, but there's these techniques that are very effective. And even if they don't get 100% results, they're going to get some results. And even if they get no results, which is rare,
Yeah.
I understand, at least they could rule out trying something before they get a permanent surgery, right? So I love that
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
gives people those options. Um, do you have any stories to share, more stories to share of people who've come to you with issues and have had really great success?
I mean, I just have so many, I don't even know where to start. No, I'm just kidding. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, I just had a gentleman leave a review for me on Google because I'm just trying to get into what I'm really bad at, to be honest with you, is business. What I'm good at is training and working with people. What I'm bad at is business. But I had him leave a review, and he had had back pain for 15 years, and he'd been working with me for 3 years now. He's now a great friend, and he hasn't had a single spell of back pain for over 3 years now. He's an older gentleman, and I'd like to think I've kind of helped him change his life a little bit, whether it be just his quality of movement or, even just drinking more water, taking more time for himself, things like that. It's funny because when I first got started, to be honest with you, I look back at who I was and the trainer that I was, and I have to kind of laugh because you always kind of look back at where you were and you're like, man, I didn't know a single thing. I didn't know what I was doing at all. And I know in 10 years from now, I'm going to look back at myself now and be like, God, I thought I knew so much. I don't know anything. But yeah, I had this lady come see me, and she had, a lot of people use the terminology, but she had thrown out her back. So she was all slumped over. Her back was totally wrecked. She couldn't really do much of anything without feeling a lot of pain.
Mm.
And I was a little inexperienced, so I tried to get her to do just a little gentle warm up, and even the warm up just absolutely lit her on fire. And so I just laid her down on the floor, had her do some breathing exercises, taught her ELDOA for L5S1, which is the like really the pillar of all the ELDOA exercises. So your last lumbar vertebra, your first sacral vertebra, it's really just an important area because of how important the pelvis is and the amount of stress that area takes. But anyway, I taught her how to do that really gently, and she hasn't had pain since then. So she like texts me. She's like my biggest fan, just because she was a dancer. She was super active, super healthy lady, and now she gets to go back and do all that stuff. And she does all her exercises. I mean, the amount of people that I've worked with that I've been able to help is pretty awesome to look back on that. But in reality, like I said before, it's really those people helping themselves. Like I
Mm.
gave them the exercises, but the people that have the most success with me are the ones that commit themselves to doing the homework that I give them. It's if you see me once a week, you see me for an hour, hour and a half a week, and then there's all 100 something hours left in the week for you to manage what we do, and then for you to improve on yourself. So if you do those exercises, if you commit to that, really that's when you start to get the result, because you need consistency in those things. Your body has learned through thousands of bad reps or thousands of days in pain or whatever it is to adapt to a certain posture. So to unlearn that takes a little bit of time, and that time takes consistency. And so that consistency takes a dedicated effort on your part to do the exercises. But I mean, I'm trying to think if there's been really a groundbreaking one that I'm just super stoked on. Honestly, anybody that I help that has pain, I'm pretty pumped to be able to help them out. But let's see. It was funny because I was working on this lady the other day. I was working on this lady. That's a funny way of saying that. I was I was treating this lady, and she had had carpal tunnel in her left hand for, I don't know, 4 years. And she was a painter, and so she really enjoyed painting, and she just couldn't do it as enthusiastically as she wanted because it hurt her hands whenever she would
Mm.
do it. So she went to a surgeon. The surgeon recommended carpal tunnel surgery, and I had worked with her on her neck before. Of course, that's what he recommended.
Right, I'm like,
But
would a surgeon ever
yeah,
be like, I think you should go get
yeah,
some gentle massage?
right, exactly. So, so she came to me, and her hand was almost contracted like Dupuytren's. Are you
Mm.
familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was almost contracted like Dupuytren. So she set it down on the table. I did a whole bunch of work for the fascia of her hand. I pumped. Pumping is just a terminology thing for getting the joints to move better, more nutrition, all that kind of stuff. So did all that for her shoulder, her elbow, and then her wrist, and then worked on the fascia of her hand. And then I moved to the other side because she had a small problem with her right hand, and so she laid her left hand down on the table, and I didn't say anything because I wanted her to notice, but her hand had opened almost completely on the table without her trying to force it, because all of the connective tissue of her upper limb had just relaxed. And so I waited like 2 or 3 minutes, and she looked over, she goes, "Oh my God, look at my hand." And I was like, "Yep, check it out. Pretty cool." So I mean, just things like that, or like you have people get on your table, you work on their sacroiliac joint, or you work on their knee, and all of a sudden their back feels better, and it's just like, yeah, it's like I just say magic because I'm trying to be funny, but the reality is, if you respect the connectedness and the holistic nature of the body, like you can really achieve some amazing things. So yeah, I mean, just things like that, pretty cool.
What caused her fascia to be tight in the first place, do you think?
For her, I think it was just repetitive nature of holding onto a brush for 5 hours a day for 10, 15
Oh,
years.
not
I think
taking a
that,
break.
yeah, not taking a break. I mean, she was passionate about it. She loves painting. She loves painting. So just that. And then also, I'm pretty sure her before she retired, she was not a secretary, but she was somebody who worked on a computer a lot. So just a lot of stuff with the hand being in that kind of closed claw position, just kind of gradually, chronically shortened everything in her hand. And so when that happens, the posture just adapts to it. And then, the posture of the hand affects the wrist affects the shoulder, and then the neck, and all that down the line. So, yeah, I think it was just a chronic thing for her. Some people it's hydration, some people it's stress, some people it's any number of factors. I mean, the superficial fascia of your body covers your whole body except for your face. So if you think about, if I were wearing like a bodysuit, which is kind of weird to think about, but if I was wearing a bodysuit and just kind of scrunched up all the fabric by my hand, well, it would get tighter by my toes and tighter by my knees and my back and my neck. It wouldn't be as obvious as it is by my hand, but for sure it still gets tighter. So that the body is connected in that way. So for her, I think it was chronic. For other people, it could be any number of things. But that any number of things is why this job is so cool, is because it's not a cut and paste kind of thing for anybody. Everybody that comes in is a new puzzle to try to solve. So that always keeps it interesting.
I love that you keep bringing up that hydration is so important. I was a massage therapist in Canada ages ago, eons ago, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting how tissue does feel different depending on whether someone's hydrated or chronically dehydrated.
Absolutely.
And even cellulite is, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, cellulite is the puckering the fascia when it's dehydrated, and people always think oh, cellulite's just fat or something, but it's the fascia adhering because it's dehydrated and it's getting all sticky. Is that correct? Is that a good way of explaining it?
I believe that. Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I'm not super sure about cellulite, but it makes sense to me because a lot of people, so the fat that you have, at least above the orthopedic system, is located inside of that superficial layer of fascia. So if that fascia contracts, it makes sense that it would create some of that dimpling effect for the cellulite. Absolutely.
Right. And so there's a aesthetic reason why we should hydrate.
Yeah.
How do you what do you recommend? So let's say everyone is listening is dehydrated on some level. They're drinking
Yep.
coffee or black tea instead of water. They don't, they're not drinking the 4 gallons of water a day or whatever. And
That's quite a bit of water.
I'm from Canada, so I keep forgetting
Yeah.
quarts,
Yeah.
not
Well, no,
gallons,
we
but
use liters. We
you
use
guys use
liters.
liters? Okay, like,
Yeah.
2 liters minimum, right? So I,
Yeah, we need to switch to the metric system without a doubt. I hate dealing with ounces and gallons. It just doesn't even make any sense. Let's be honest. But
so you drink at least 2 liters of water a day. But okay, so if everyone is somewhat dehydrated, how much water
yeah,
should people drink, and how can we help dehydrated tissue to become hydrated again? Are there any exercises or movements that, or just moving the body, is that going to be adequate enough to
yeah.
rehydrate?
Yeah, I mean, so that really takes time. The way I kind of think about it is it's like filling an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Okay, it's going to take some time. You have a hose. It's not like, your body is 70% water. Certain structures are more or less depending on which one you're talking about. But if you want to think about it, it's like, okay, yes, I dump 4 liters of water into my body today. Okay, that's good. But how much of that water is needed to work through the kidneys so that I can cleanse and detoxify? How much of that water is for biochemical processes? And how much of that water is actually going to make its way into my orthopedic system so that I can start to rehydrate the structures that we're talking about? I don't know what that number is. It might only be 100 milliliters of that 4 liters that you drink. So if you're missing, 15, or if you're missing, 15 kilos of water in your body, then it's going to take a little while for you to get rehydrated, right? So a lot of people say it's like, oh, I need to drink water. Yes, but I've been drinking water for the last week and I don't feel any different, or I'm just peeing a lot. Well, it's like, it's like, hey, sorry to break it to you, but it takes a little while to do that kind of thing. So I would say it's, if it also depends on what kind of climate you live in too. If you live in a super dry climate, it's different than you live in humidity. If you live in altitude, that's different. If you live in New Orleans, where I live, where it's just, hot as a mother every day, then it's a little bit different. So, I mean, I like to say that if, I'm going back to ounces. Look at me talking about how much the metric system is good. I'm going back to ounces, but I mean, your body weight in ounces of water a day is a good place to start. And then you also have to think about the quality of the water. Hopefully it's not tap water. Gosh, I'm crossing my fingers for you. It's not tap water. If it's nice, good quality mineral water, that has a different effect than just, distilled, reverse osmosis water, like with the minerals and things like that. Whether you drink it with food or without food, that's getting into more of the, the fine details of it. But a lot of people, they think that they drink a lot of water, and then you really ask them and they go, well, I drink water. It's like, how much do you drink? I don't know, a couple glasses. Yeah, I drink like 4 glasses of 8 ounces a day. That's only 32 ounces, ma'am. You need to drink like 100. What are you doing? And so people are in some ways surprised that they have these orthopedic issues, but at the same time, they're dehydrated. It's like, for me, that's your base level of nutrition for your body. If you don't have water, you can't do anything else, and you can't really, you can't do anything else. So if you want height in the disc for your lumbar spine so that the nerve isn't so compressed, well, guess what? The disc is 85% water. You need water in the disc to make a change. You need water in the muscle. You need water in the fascia so that things can actually move. A lot of people, they have my teacher loves to say this, and I think it's such a great idea, but there's the age on your passport, and then there's the actual age of your body. We all know somebody who's in their 80s, but, looks vibrant and feels young and moves really well. And then we also know somebody in their 30s that's like, oh, my back every day, or oh, my knees. There's a difference between the age on your passport and the age of your body. So water is the answer. Drink more water. And as far as movement that's going to solicit the water, just moving is a good place to start. As far as particular movements just to move the water around your body, I don't really have an answer for that one, unfortunately.
Just drink and move, and your body will take care of itself.
Yeah, I mean, think about your body as any other body of water, right? Like if you look at a pond that doesn't have any fresh water moving in and out of it, guess what? It gets stagnant, it gets stale, it starts to stink, it starts to rot. Well, guess what? You're not moving and you're not giving new water to your body. Well, no wonder that you have this pain or that ache that just will not go away. You need to manage those things on a more consistent basis for you to really make any change. And that takes time too. You can't expect, if you the gentleman that came and saw me from Colorado, he's been living in Colorado. He's been super active. He's a super active guy, works out in the heat all the time. He's only been drinking about 1 liter to 1.5 liters of water a day. And he's about 180 pounds. That is 50% of what he needs to be drinking. And he's been drinking that for 25 years. So there's no adaptability. There's no leeway in his tissue because there's no water in his body.
I love it. So, and it's going to take time. Like you said, in 2 weeks of working with you, his pain went from an 8 out of 10 to a 4 out of 10. So I imagine in the coming weeks, he's going to see even better results, but it does take time.
Hope so.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
And he flew down to see you, and then he flew back, and he's continuing to do the exercises that you taught him and getting results. I love it. I love that.
Yeah, that's the hope, at least, is that he keeps, because unfortunately, like we have, it's easier for us to have a short-term memory loss where we go, oh, I forgot how much pain I was in. I forgot that if I, oh, my pain is gone, my body feels good, I don't have to do my exercises anymore. And then they try to go right back into the gym and pick up right where they left off, deadlifting however many pounds, and they go, oh crap, my back hurts again. It's like, well, sorry brother, but you're not quite back to the place where I need you to be before you can really start loading, your body again.
Right. I've had that happen with my clients where I get them off of the foods that are causing inflammation, get them on a great holistic diet that's anti-inflammatory, and get them on some, supplements to aid in rebuilding their body if they have certain nutrient deficiencies, and they start feeling amazing, and then they go and they call me up and they're
They go
like,
right
"Why
back.
am I in so much pain?" I've had it more than once. It's so funny.
Yep.
One that's coming to mind is this grandma, and she's like, "Why am I in so much pain?" I'm like, "Okay, well, what's happening?" She's doing everything right, and everything I've laid out for her. She was getting really great results, and all of a sudden she's just totally flared up. I'm like, "Okay, well, tell me what you did this week." "Well, I gardened, and then I hiked with my grandkids, and then I played with them for 4 hours in the yard." I'm like, "Were you doing any of that before we worked together?" Like, "No, I was sitting
Yeah.
watching like Wheel of Fortune all day because I couldn't."
Yeah.
And so when they start getting really great results, or you take the pain away, then all of a sudden they're living like they're half their age, and they're go, go, go. And then some pain comes back because they're pushing their body way beyond what they were ever used to. So we have to
Hmm.
always remember that even if when the pain's gone, we need to ease into it. Have, like you said, move more aware, have that awareness, and have
Yes.
that patience to baby our body a little bit as we build up endurance. While we're building upon the foundation that you helped set for them. You
Totally. Yeah. You got to take your time. You got to take your time. It's not I mean, unless you're an elite athlete and there's a competition that you're getting ready for, or, maybe you're a weekend warrior and there's really something you want to do. Yeah. Maybe you can push it a little bit, but you have to take into context like that's a risk that you're willing to take. But for most people, take your time, take your time. You got nothing to rush you.
I have a few more questions before we wrap it up. I want to get into, just because you did say you were going to touch on explaining a bit more about the tensegrity, but before we do that,
Mm,
we kept talking about how important water is. We live on a well, and the water's been amazing the last few
awesome.
years. But something happened. All of a sudden, our water started tasting funky, and we're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, we have to buy.
Mm,
We started buying bottled water. Like, while we waited for the lab results to come back to tell us whether our well water was safe or not. And
yeah.
it's something that I keep forgetting is, if you live on a well, you should have it tested every year, right? Like, it's kind of
Yep.
important. You don't want to die of E. coli.
Totally.
And so, well, I finally made the purchase of a gravity fed. It doesn't require electricity, so it's great for emergencies. But a gravity fed water filtration system that's really affordable, and I've been wanting to buy it for about 12 years. It's so funny that I didn't need to buy it, and it also
Hmm.
has a way of filtering out fluoride for those in the city. Um,
Nice.
we're drinking even more water now because of it. And even though our well water, for whatever reason, it went back to normal. It was like this weird fluke. I don't know what happened, but everything's
You caught the
fine. I
cold.
know, it's like, right? It got a cold.
Yeah.
So our well water still tastes great, but we put it in this water filter that's on our counter, and it is amazing. It filters out all viruses. It goes all the way down to viruses, but like, it can filter out. You could basically put sewer water. You could put like a puddle, water from a puddle or a pond or a creek into it, and it filters out everything, and but it
Awesome.
doesn't filter out minerals, so it's makes the water
Oh,
taste
that's cool.
amazing. Yeah, so I'll put a link to it's now my new favorite water filter. I think everyone should own it. I'm gonna put a link to it in the
What's it
show
called?
notes. I forget the size. There's different sizes. It's a Berkey, and
Berkey. Yeah, I was gonna say Berkey.
I put
That's awesome.
I read a bunch of people's comments about the which size to get, and I was like, "Oh, we should just get the travel size." And I read a bunch, and no, you should actually get one size larger than you think you need. And
Okay.
because you will want to cook with it, you'll want to cook with that water. Your whole family wants to drink it, but then you're going to also find that you want to cook with it. And so once we started doing that, we realized that we still fill it up every day. So we got third largest size. I'll put it in the show notes, but this is my absolute new favorite kitchen gadget is the Berkey. And like I said, you can get the filters to filter out the fluorides. So, because a lot of people go, I don't like the taste of water. And it's
Yeah.
like, you know what?
That's so
This
strange.
stuff makes water taste amazing. Well, especially if they live in the city, right? And then even
True, true,
bottled
true. Very
water
true.
has the problem with buying bottled water. And I've had guests on the show, doctors on the show teaching this, but they're finding now that if you drink bottled water, so basically any water from plastic, any water that's been stored
Yep.
in a plastic, they're finding microplastic has been leached into your water. So now, what is your
For sure.
kidneys? What's your kidneys and liver going to do with microplastic? Like,
Throw their hands up in the air and complain, I
right,
guess.
exactly. So it's an endocrine disruptor. It's an obesogen. It's not healthy in any way, and so many people resort to drinking water from plastic bottles. So this is why I love the idea of getting a Berkey for everyone because it makes your water taste great. It'll take out the chlorine and the fluoride and all that stuff from your tap water, but it makes it taste great so you drink more. And it doesn't require any electricity, so if the power goes out, you can still filter water or if there's an emergency.
Perfect.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I'm actually probably gonna buy one for my studio,
you
honestly.
totally
Yeah.
should. Yes.
Yeah, I definitely should.
Yeah. So the trick I found is that you want to get one that is big enough to feed everyone for the day, but only for the day. You want to fill it up at the end of each day and maximum at the end every 2 days, but you don't want to go longer than that because the if the filter gets dry and air gets in it, then it becomes very slow. And so you want to get one that's big enough to give enough water so it doesn't run out during the day, but then small enough to still need to fill up the top chamber once every 1 or 2 days. So that's my tip for knowing what size Berkey to get. But yeah, I highly recommend it. I think everyone should own a Berkey, and I see a lot of people in RVs have the travel Berkey because they literally go to a pond or a creek, and put it in. I
Yeah,
think that's
awesome.
pretty cool. Yeah. Okay. So that was my plug for, and I'll make sure the link in to my favorite size and for the Berkeys in the show notes of the podcast at learntruehealth.com, of course, and the link to Jacob Schoen's website as well is going to be in the show notes of the podcast, which is shiftsportwellness.com. And we're going to talk about how people can work with you. But first, tensegrity, is that like a mixture of
Mm.
tension and integrity?
That is exactly what it is. Good for you. That's awesome. Yeah, it was actually originally a term developed for more architectural structures. So Buckminster Fuller back in like
Mm.
I want to say maybe 1970s, 1960s. Don't quote me on that. But it was so there's a lot of big structures across the world that are used to or sorry that are using by or tensegrity principles to be built. So if you think about a building that is, they're going to try to build a building, I think in Dubai or Qatar, that's almost a kilometer high. And so you can't build that building by stacking one brick on top of the other. It would just never work. It just wouldn't work. So what you have to do is you have to build integrity into that building intrinsically by creating tension across the pieces. So you think about the Golden Gate Bridge, you think about I think it's the Olympic Dome in Montreal, you think about it, there's another bridge in France. Classically, you can think about it as it is islands. Okay, this is a esoteric way of saying it, but it's islands of decompress or islands of solid pieces. So an island's in a sea of tension. So what that means is that like if you look at your orthopedic system, okay, there's no place where you should say that okay, this is supported by that, right? Because it's not a brick on top of a brick. Like when I stand up, my head is not attached to a hook on the ceiling or by a rod in my back, unless I've had surgery. But if you look at a skeleton in a classroom, it has to be supported by a hook or it has to be supported by a rod, or else it would just fall to the floor.
Right.
So how does it maintain its structure? Well, it maintains its structure by taking this piece and pulling it tight and then attaching it to that piece and then attaching it over there and then back and forth, back and forth. And before you know, it's like a spider's web in your whole body that pulls you together and keeps you together, but allows you to move and be dynamic at the same time. So that tensegrity system is really how we have to look at the body if we want to understand how different pathologies or different problems can really be connected. It's because if you looked at it from a Newtonian kind of way, which is just that this brick is stacked on top of this brick on top of this brick, then it wouldn't make any sense that the brick at the very bottom is affecting directly the brick at the very top. But if you look at it in the way that this one is connected to that one, to that one, to that one, to that one, then it makes a ton of sense how it could, how you can have a problem at your ankle, which affects your knee, which affects your hip, which affects your lower back, which affects your shoulders, which affects then your neck. So all of those pieces together come together to make the tensegrity model. So when you have your body, it is being held together by the tension, and the tension is being its base of support, or its foundation is these decompressive elements, so your bones essentially. And so through that, you create the beautiful and amazing organism that you are as a human, which is how we're able to walk upright and how we're able to do all the things that we can do. So I mean, if you just took a bunch of bricks, held them in a stack, and then dropped them on the floor, they would all fall apart. But for me, if I stand up and jump, when I land, my heart doesn't hit my pelvis. There's a reason for that. It's because it's supported by all the ligaments that we talked about earlier. There's a reason why my sacrum doesn't fall to the ground. It's because it's supported by the sacroiliac ligaments and the disc of the lumbar spine and all of that stuff, and the muscles and all of that. So really that goes back to the fascia, which is what gives our body the ability to have a tensegrity structure. Because if you don't have a tissue that connects all of the pieces, then you don't have a tensegrity structure. You just have brick on top of brick. And we know that we don't have that because a skeleton can't hang by itself. So to respect that, we have to use exercise and therapies that respect that organization, which is why I think that these programs are so amazing, is because they do respect that. Yes, they break it down to the pieces, but they talk about and teach you how to assess why the ankle might affect a problem with the head, or why someone who's had a concussion needs to have work done on their coccyx. Things like that is just why it's so freaking cool, to be honest with you. But that's why it's also so complex and so difficult, because that's why a lot of people, they can spend their time spinning their wheels. It's like, I had a back problem. I went to the surgeon, I got my back operated on, and I still have back pain. It's like, that's interesting. Maybe it's because your knee, or maybe it's because emotional system, or any of the other things. So the tensegrity is a biomechanical philosophy, but it's also a global way of thinking, because it's a more complex way of thinking, which means that you respect the complexity of a human and not just a robot with muscle on them walking into your office.
Yes, I love it. I've had these amazing
Yeah.
experiences where my chiropractor gives me an exercise for my upper back, and my lower back all of a sudden stops hurting, or he adjusts my neck and my hip stops hurting, or he adjusts my
Mm-hmm.
SI joint and my thoracic spine stops hurting. I'm like, what did you do? Well, it's like,
Yeah.
but it's cool because it's like you said, it's about respecting that integrity of the where the tension needs to be in that balance. And I like that your type of training with people, your exercise, and also the therapy you do is looking at how you can support the body and having that optimal balance. That makes complete
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, it's back to the specialization quote, which is, if you only specialize in one thing, when someone comes to you for that thing, then that's what you're going to do. But if you at least have the foresight to say that, okay, the thing that they're coming to me for might not actually be their problem, it just might be where their symptoms are, then you can really open up the doors for them to actually get the result that they're looking for, which is pain or better performance, or whatever it is. And it's like, and now I'm at the point where I'm just like, I'm not even having to convince myself anymore, because being classically educated in a Western culture where most things are reductionist down to the specific thing, like, or the problem is where the symptoms are, yada, yada, yada. I had to work really hard to think in this way, and to think in a more complex way, and to take myself out of the more linear way of thinking. But now that I'm on the dark side, if you will. It's just so obvious to me. It's just like, well, of course it's all connected. How simple do you think a human being really is? Although we can be simple sometimes. How complex do you think some things really can be? Well, they can be tremendously complex. Of course, the muscles of your eyes that help you orient yourself with where you're looking can affect your lower back. Of course, the concussion that you had when you were 7, because the Dur matter envelops the brain and then goes down and attaches to the coccyx. Of course, that can explain some of the pelvic floor problems that you're having. It's like, of course it can. But until you take a step back and really see it that way, then you don't really have an opportunity to I think fully help someone to their potential, because you're limited in the philosophy that you have towards or at least that you use to approach them.
Right. There's a big difference between the hubris and the humility. You have so much humility that you're willing to say I don't know, but I'm not going to impose my belief system on my client. I'm going to be open-minded and go and be the detective to help find the root cause and help my client come back into balance and be open to learning new things as I go, versus other
Hmm.
practitioners will have that hubris to believe that they know better, right? And that's
I
where we
Yeah.
that's where we really hit a brick wall when it comes to our own healing, is when we give up our power, especially to practitioners that have that hubris.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, that was not how I started. I mean, I'm a person who, when I was in high school, I couldn't translate Latin to save my life. So I would memorize hundreds and hundreds of words of Latin for like a particular translation, so that when I got the test, I could just write from memory. So like I am a like go type A, like, all right, you want to beat me in this contest, well, good luck, like kind of person. Like, so for me to admit that I don't know something definitely took some time, I'm not going to lie to you. um, but now I'm at a place where it's almost freeing to say that I don't know some things, because then the pressure of having to know isn't there, and then also the opportunity to grow from not knowing and having the opportunity to explore and to challenge myself by thinking a different way is now open. And then it just makes me think of the quote that my teacher always says, which is like, with the body all is possible. And that's just
Mm.
like, I think, so beautiful and powerful, because of course, like, we yes, we like to think of ourselves pretty highly as humans, like we've kind of dominated the planet and all the stuff that we do to the world, but like, as an organism, as a creature, we are pretty spectacular. We are pretty spectacular. The emotional capacity that we have, the physical capacity that we have, and all of those to be in the world that we are, we're an amazing, amazing creature. So I think we have to adopt different ways of thinking to respect that organization. And for me, as far as an exercise goes, and that's what I'm passionate about, this makes just the most sense.
I love it. You had mentioned that you worked with a woman recently where you did a fundamental exercise to release L5S1. Is that something you can teach us through the podcast?
Verbally, no. To be perfectly honest with you, that isn't something. It's difficult to do when you're with someone because of the amount of awareness that it takes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for example, you have to simultaneously coordinate specific movements with your hands, your neck, your eyes, your lower back, your feet, your knees, your hips. Like, I mean, your whole body has to be coordinated, because what you're trying to do is, I kind of use an analogy like the golf swing. Um, if I want to hit a golf ball at the hole, well, then I can't hit it anywhere else. I have to hit it at the hole. So to hit it at the hole, I have to have my hands, my elbows, my shoulders, my hips, everything needs to be going well. I need to judge the wind, all this stuff. So all of those pieces need to come together. And if they come together, then I hit it at the hole. But if they don't come together, then maybe I hit it off into the bunker or whatever it is. So to be able to actually specifically target L5S1, the connective tissue around L5S1, and that joint by itself, it takes a coordinated effort of your whole body. And so to do that, especially if you are not super aware of your limbs, or you're maybe not the most coordinated person, it's difficult to do in person, and over audio like this without being able to visually see someone. I'd say
Got it.
impossible.
We want to hit it in the hole. Now, that's why
Totally.
people should come see you. You are willing to talk to people on Skype, but you mostly work with people in person, and clients have flown to see you.
Hmm.
Tell us
Yep.
about how people, what does it look like to work with you, how people work with you, um, and could people, like, let's say a listener in Australia, work with you through Skype?
Yeah, absolutely. So it just depends on what they're really looking to accomplish. So if you have someone who is in Australia, for example, who wants to learn the basics of the ELDOA, wants just someone to introduce it to them to see if they like it, to see how they feel. I do Skype sessions like that all the time. I have people contact me just because they want to work with me, and they like the approach that I have, and they want to learn some of the exercises. And then if you have a really specific thing that you haven't been able to resolve in months or years or weeks or whatever it is, and you have the means to come down and see me, I set up books of time, or blocks of time for people to come down, get the treatment and work on the exercise, and then go home with a full exercise program based on the problems that they have and then how much time they have, because you don't want to give someone an hour of exercise if they say they only have 10 minutes because they're a busy mom or executive or whatever it is. And then, I've also had people who have organized little courses where they bring me to their facility for their athletes or for their practitioners, and I give them kind of an ELDOA rundown. So I teach
Nice.
them, yeah, I teach them some of the basics of the ELDOA. I call it a workshop. So I
Mm-hmm.
do a workshop for them where the goal is to introduce them to the exercises, to teach them some of the basics that they can start to do for themselves, and to start to integrate that into their daily practice or their movement practice and things like that. And then if you're within driving distance of me, come on down and see me. I have my studio here in New Orleans, and I take clients every day except for the weekends. Take off on the weekends for a little me time. But come down and see me, and then the process is relatively the same. Have the assessment, try to figure out what I see in your body based off of your symptoms and all those things that would be to give me as much information as I can have about you, your lifestyle, nutrition, stress, all that type of stuff, to start to develop a program and a plan of attack, if you will, to get you to where you want to be. And then either put you back in the car and send you back to where you're home, and you work on that for a couple of weeks, and then you come back depending on your means. Or if you're an out of town person, maybe we spend, instead of just 1 or 2 hours together, we spend 2 days together, 2, 3 days, do a whole bunch of work, give you a big program like the gentleman who came from Colorado, and then you go off and you work on that. You report back to me, you get feedback, and then we kind of work from there. It's really a process for those types of things.
I love it. And your clinic in New Orleans is called Shift Sport Wellness?
So I changed. It is where it was. I called it. I did call it Shift Sport Wellness, but then I changed it to Shift Training and Health because people didn't know what sport and wellness meant. So I changed it to training and health, which made it hopefully more obvious for people.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly.
But if they go to
Yeah.
shiftsportwellness.com, they can find out more information about your clinic and how they can work with you and how they can contact you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm on there, and that's going to be the best place. I mean, I'm on Google. So if you search Shift Training Health on Google, you'll find me, and there should be a link to message me on there. And then my email is also on my website. So anything that people want to send me with questions, I try to help with over email as best as I can. But the reality is that if I really respect the complexity of the person, then you know if someone tells me that they've had back pain for 10 years, what can they do? My answer, to be honest with you, is I don't know, because I don't know who I'm working with yet. So I try to be as helpful as I can, but also respect the idea that each person is individual, and I can't give cookie cutter answers for people really looking to help
I
themselves.
love that. And that comes back to the you have the humility and you to respect everyone as an individual. And of course, if someone has had back pain for 10 years, they should come see you in person so you can do an assessment. Like you said, you do an extensive assessment to figure out if you can see kinesiology, the kinesiology of the problem. And then of
Hmm.
course, like you said, you assess their nutrition and find out if they're dehydrated or not, and their lifestyle, and you can determine what's going on. So you take it from there. I have thoroughly enjoyed spending these last 2 hours with you. The time has just
Awesome.
flown. It's crazy. So awesome.
Right?
Is there anything that you'd like to say to wrap up today's interview? Anything left unsaid, or any any last words you want to share with our listeners?
Um, yeah, I mean, if I hadn't already said it, then I'll make it exclusive or like explicitly clear. I think when it comes to these types of problems that we're talking about, I think you really have two options. And those two options are, one, you can offload the responsibility and the work and the problem to someone else, or you can take the responsibility yourself. Just because you go and see someone doesn't mean that you're offloading that responsibility. But if you can find a way to use exercise, or I mean, I see a counselor every week just to because it's nice to talk to somebody. Like if you can start to work with people that help you help yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that's really going to be where the power is. If you continue to do things that in some way start to whittle away at that power that you have, I think in the long term that you'll find that you won't be as successful. So my really advice to people would be to start to bring the power back to yourself and to try to make the change for yourself because in my experience, you can do it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jacob Schoen, for coming on the show today. The links to everything that Jacob does is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntrahealth.com. His website again is shiftsportwellness.com. It's been such a pleasure having you on the show and sharing why we should all learn ELDOA. I think it's like we should all learn it, right? This is amazing because we want to keep the, like you said, the integrity and the tension in the right space, in the right alignment, as the demands on our body changes throughout our life, that we should make sure that we're coming back into balance. So it just makes sense to work with you. We all, people take their car to the mechanic more than they consider taking their body to the mechanic, right? Like, so I think you're
Absolutely,
like
they
the
do.
mechanic I want to take my body to. That's pretty awesome. Jacob,
Yeah,
it's been such
totally.
a pleasure talking to you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Hello, true health seeker. Have you ever thought about becoming a health coach? Do you love learning about nutrition and how we can shift our lifestyle and our diet so that we can gain optimal health and happiness and longevity? Do you love helping your friends and family to solve their health problems and to figure out what they can do to eat healthier? Are you interested in becoming someone who can grow their own business, support people in their success? Do you love helping people? You might be the perfect candidate to become a health coach. I highly recommend checking out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I just spent the last year in their health coaching certification program, and it really blew me away. It was so amazing. I learned over 100 dietary theories. I learned all about nutrition, but from a standpoint of how we can help people to shift their life and shift their lifestyle to gain true holistic health. I definitely recommend you check them out. You can Google Institute for Integrative Nutrition or IIN and give them a call, or you can go to learntruehealth.com/coach and you can receive a free module of their training to check it out and see if it's something that you'd be interested in. Be sure to mention my name, Ashley James, in the Learn True Health podcast, because I made a deal with them that they will give you the best price possible. I highly recommend checking it out. It really changed my life to be in their program, and I'm such a big advocate that I wanted to spread this information. We need more health coaches. In fact, health coaching is the largest growing career right now in the health field. So many health coaches are getting in and helping people because you can work in chiropractic offices, doctors' offices, you can work in hospitals, you can work online through Skype and help people around the world. You can become an author, you can go into the school system and help your local schools shift their programs to help children be healthier. You can go into senior centers and help them to shift their diet and lifestyle to best support them in their success and their health goals. There's so many different available options for you when you become a certified health coach. So check out IIN, check out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, mention my name, get the best deal. Give them a call and they'll give you lots of free information and help you to see if this is the right move for you. Classes are starting soon. The next round of classes are starting at the end of the month. So you're going to want to call them now and check it out. And if you know anyone in your life who would be an amazing coach, please tell them about it. Being a health coach is so rewarding and you get to help so many people. Are you looking to optimize your health? Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic true health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program.